Ping Sunday has the special permission of Coach Chen Kangning. Please don't upload the video without the permission of Coach Chen and Ping Sunday.
Hello, welcome back. Today, let's learn table tennis with Coach Chen Kangning.
Training this I think there's no absolute way. You really need to keep learning. At the same time, I think you need to reflect a lot yourself. It's easy to remember them, right? There aren't many of them, but when will you actually use them? That's very important. You can't just copy and apply the same method. You need to have an eye for discovering problems. After he comes to the table, he keeps failing to get the ball over the net. Why exactly the ball isn't going over? What's the real reason behind it? Then think, what method can I use to change this situation? That's how you solve problems, not just casually say. Coach Chen said, if you want the ball to go over the net, open your racket angle more. It's not a racket angle issue. Pay attention. He tries that, still hits the net. He thinks, why should I listen to you? Right, so you need to truly identify where the real problem lies. Then go look for the correct formula. As soon as he hits into the net, you apply the racket angle fix right away. As soon as he hits out, you say speed up, brush more topspin. He didn't hit forward enough.
对吧？所以说还是要根据实际情况加质量，很简单。放慢了我就不顶它，我就直接，那这是一个慢的转的，对吧？
If I want to attack him,
这不就立马就冲了吗？但是我为什么可控弧线稳定呢？
It's because when I actually made contact with the ball, just before that, I added a movement using my stomach to push my hand, but I didn't really hit it.
如果顶实了就是怼出去。
Even if you add something in the second half, add more again. Adding more in the second half, sending it outward. Does it still have any meaning?
没意义了。一瞬间是不是球早就脱手了？之前有人抬杠。
People keep debating is it friction first or impact first?
撞击是怎么回事？
It's your whole body, whether it's your center of gravity or your core. Using them to drive your hand and form inertia that resists the ball. I criticized my student. Furui he clashed with mixing household and hitting are related, right? Then when you turn to push the ball, isn't that also hitting it? Just that you didn't hit it solidly. How would you have a chance to add spin? Right, so what's my view? I can only express my personal view. Use the inertia generated by the motion of turning and pushing outward. Then actually contact the ball. You shouldn't be thinking about hitting the ball. Many enthusiasts love playing with long pips. When she hits a forehand against a backspin ball, next time, watch carefully why does she lift her elbow. Logically speaking, raising the elbow in table tennis is incorrect. With short pips, just a light can already lift the ball and create arc. Then with acceleration, I can drive through. But it's even harder to generate friction than with short pips. She has no choice but to do this. So do you think she needs to lift her elbow? Because she needs to flip the spin on the ball. She has to flip the ball over. So everything in table tennis is dialectical. There's no absolute right or wrong. If she followed my earlier correct technique for attacking backspin with short pips, it looks good. No elbow lift. The ball would go into the net. Then you'd say her action is incorrect, but used in her context. With that specific ball, it's totally okay. Correct. See, in table tennis, everything is dialectical. Learning the banana flick like this, you're just putting your arm out and swinging downward. In fact, you're not really impacting the ball. So although your form looks good, you need a movement that really applies force downward and outward. When you give real force, the outward and downward motion will naturally appear. You might not actually transmit real power, so that's why I don't recommend it. When teaching kids technique, we often overemphasize hitting to a specific spot. Hit to your left eyebrow. I think that kind of teaching is outdated. When kids are learning how to loop the ball, I think you shouldn't rush to let them practice power loops. Same goes for hobby players learning to play. They need to have a sense of control first, and just go full power. And when they can't control the spin and arc yet, how can they have stability? They try to do 10 power loops and get super hyped up. Mentally, they block out the 9 mistakes. We should focus on backspin, mid-stage, and late-stage loops. Let them get used to that rhythm first. Let them feel that timing and control. Once they get used to it and they can control the ball well, then you can gradually add quality and speed. That's much easier. So let kids start looping from the middle or later timing, when they have control over spin and arc. I think this is a more appropriate way. Don't start with power loops right away. And sometimes the ball might even go long, because the feed is comfortable. They feel overly confident. But that's a false sense. So it should be gradual. Find the right rhythm. Tell them to wait for the ball to rise. That's the first point. Second point, use the thumb and index finger to generate spin and arc. Then add power. I think this way. Although it doesn't look flashy at they'll improve more smoothly over time. If you start with a mess of random power strokes, they develop bad habits. Every time they see a ball, they overhit, but they don't actually control the ball. Then you'll wonder why your multi-ball feeding looks good. But in matches, they miss all the loops. Why can he hit well in practice, but not in competition? Because in practice, the feed is ideal. The child never learned control or rhythm.
我给他喂多球，怎么拉的都挺好的，家长也会来咨询你，怎么他一比赛老是拉不上台，对吧？你给他喂的球，他都能拉上台，那有什么用呢？你最终还是要他跟别人打球的时候，他能把这个球打好，而不是你喂给他的球他能打好。我觉得这个训练的思路、方法、方式都很重要。
When you teach him to brush the ball,
都很好，他知道往前往外，对吧？
He's very standard. He already pulls the ball like this when learning to loop. Right, many kids' backhands end up like this. Why do they think like this? I need to go forward and add more friction, right? To pull the ball forward and upward. But what is the correct way to loop? It should rotate like this. That's a more reasonable way to loop the ball. Right, the same applies to the forehand. Ah, all went up like that, so what should we do?
你要告诉他转正，顺势往内，对吧？小朋友在学拉球的过程当中呢，我觉得不要太着急让他练爆冲，包括咱们爱好者来学打球，你要引导他什么呢？先有数，不要急于乱发力。他在对球还没有这些控制能力的时候，他上来就乱发力，他一定发的是蛮力，而且他对球的旋转和弧线，他制造的不是很好的时候，他怎么可能有数呢？稳定性怎么可能高呢？爆冲10个球拉上一个，然后特别自嗨，另外9个都丢了。那9个它自动屏蔽，所以我们在一开始练的时候，还是以下降中期、中后期为主。下旋，谢谢，让他们多练练这种节奏的感觉，对吧？这边，这种等一下，先练练这种节奏，等这个就是熟练了，对球控制的很好了。你说你再加质量，很简单。那这样的话，小孩从中后期先去摩擦，让他拉稳了，有数了，旋转弧线控制的很好了，然后你再过渡到让他去练冲，我觉得会比较恰当。千万不要上来就给小孩练这个，是吧？他也不注意节奏，啪就出去了，有时候也上了，对吧？因为你喂的又舒服，他也自我感觉贼良好，假的，对吧？他没数。我觉得还是要循序渐进，找到节奏。你告诉他要求高点下来了，你再去拉，你不要去抢，这是第一个。第二个呢，你要主观上利用拇指和食指去制造旋转和弧线，让他把这个掌握好了，然后你再去加质量。我觉得这样呢，上来练的时候觉得没有那么拉风，但实实在在的他掌握了以后，后面你会越练越顺。你上来咣咣一顿怼，而且他又形成习惯了。最后他看到球就是乱发力，其实对球没控制，所以你会觉得，我给他喂多球，怎么拉的都挺好的，家长也会来咨询你，怎么他一比赛老是拉不上台，对吧？你给他喂的球，他都能拉上台，那有什么用呢？你最终还是要他跟别人打球的时候，他能把这个球打好，而不是你喂给他的球，他能打好。我觉得这个训练的思路、方法、方式都很重要。你教他拨的时候，他很多小朋友都很好，他知道往前往外，对吧？他很标准，一学拉球就拉成这样了。发个下旋， 是不是很多小朋友反手就拉成这样了？为啥？他觉得我要往前上去加摩擦，对吧？我手要低点，把球往前上拉，他就拉成这种状态。而真正拉球是什么？是往前往外，是这么转，这样出去才是一个比较合理的拉球方式，对吧？那正手也一样，哎呀，太转了。对吧？都举出去了，那怎么办呢？你要告诉他转正，顺势往内，对吧？训练这个东西呢，我觉得没有绝对的，确实需要不断的学习。同时呢，我觉得还要自己多琢磨。就像我给你这些小口诀，你把它记下来，很容易，对吧？也没有几句，但是这个口诀你用到什么时候很重要，对吗？就是每个孩子他是个不同的个体，你不能照搬硬套。你要有一个善于发现问题的眼睛，比如说这个小朋友他来了以后，他总是过不了网，你要能够马上敏锐地发现他是因为什么原因过不了网的，然后你再想想，我用什么方式能够改变这个现状，这才是解决问题的办法，而不是没事陈导讲了，想过嘛就把板再亮一点啊，再拖点，他也许是劲儿没给出来呢，他不是板型的问题，但是你就套话啊，你注意啊，板微微亮。他微微亮，不是下一个还下网，他想我怎么听你的还是下网了，马上对你就没有信任感了，对吧？就是你要能够真正发现他问题的所在哪里，然后再去寻找所谓的公式，而不是他只要一下网我就套用板型的公式。他只要一出界啊，注意加速压弧线啊，往里面不够，不一定，对吧？所以说还是要根据实际情况加质量，很简单，放慢了我就不顶它，我就直接。那这是一个慢的转的，对吧？那我想冲它，我就加点顶，这不就立马就冲了吗？但是我为什么可控弧线稳定呢？是因为我真正碰到球的时候就是摩擦，只是前面加了一个什么举动，肚子顶手，手去顶球的举动，我有没有碰实？如果顶实了，就是怼出去。你就算后半段再去加，懵的，后半段再去加这个往外所谓的摩擦转，还有意义吗？为什么没意义了？一瞬间是不是球早就脱手了？之前有人抬杠抬着玩，说是先摩擦还是先撞击，其实就是摩擦。撞击是怎么回事？是你整个身体无论是重心还是核心带动手去跟球形成对抗的惯性。我批评了我的学生，他顶撞我，你看顶和撞是相关联的，对吧？那你转过来顶球，是不是就是去撞？只是你没撞实。你要真撞实了，哪有机会摩擦呢？对吧？所以我的观点是什么？我只能讲我个人的观点，是利用转正顶出去的劲儿的惯性，最后真正实际接触球，你主观上就是摩擦。你不能想着去撞球的，你想着去撞球就怼出去了。长焦，很多爱好者喜欢打长焦的，为什么？你看倪夏莲他这个正手攻球就下面球起的时候，你有没有发现倪夏莲是抬肘的？你们下次可以看看他为什么抬肘。按道理说乒乓球抬肘是错误动作，他为什么得抬？我打个比方啊，正焦我微微亮，啪，我就可以起到这个给弧线的作用，然后加速度就可以突击了，对吧？他长焦，他打滑比我正焦还难，那怎么办？他恨不得都得这样，你发。那你说他是不是要抬肘？因为他利用这个，他得把球翻过来，还得上台的那边，他不能只过网。所以说，任何东西它都是个辩证关系，没有绝对的。这个时候他抬肘就是对的，他要按照我刚刚那个正确的正焦的下旋突击的动作啊，这是好看，是不抬肘，他真下网。那你说他这个动作是错误动作，但用在他身上，用在这个球上面 ，OK， 对的。这乒乓球，你看它是个辩证关系。为什么我不建议学拧学成这样？你只是摆出来的往外往下，其实你对球没起作用，对吧？你没有起到压弧线的作用。说你摆得很好看，最后还是出界了，那你要做一个什么举动？这个举动是真正往外下给力，而不是往外下摆动作。你给这个力了，这个动作自然呈现出来的是往外往下，对吧？但是你刻意的摆这个样子，你不一定能把实实在在的力给到球上。所以为什么我不建议？就是咱们在教小朋友动作的时候，特意强调你要打到哪里，什么打到左眉毛，我觉得这种教法 low 了。
Read more about table tennis on my blog, pingsunday.com. Get free ebook and coaching advices. See you in the next video.